They can force you to fight. Here's exactly what happens next. Let's talk about something most people prefer not to think about, which is exactly why you should think about it now, while you're calm, while you're comfortable, while nobody is handing you a uniform and pointing at a bus. What actually happens when a country declares a state of emergency and decides that you, specifically you, a person with plans and preferences and a perfectly reasonable desire to stay exactly where you are needed by the military. Not as a volunteer, not as someone who felt inspired, as someone who got a letter and is now legally required to show up. This is called conscription. It has happened in virtually every major country on Earth. It is still active law in dozens of countries right now. And understanding how it works is one of those things that feels unnecessary right up until the moment it absolutely isn't. So let's walk through the whole thing. From the moment the government makes its decision, to the moment you find yourself somewhere you never planned to be, wondering how your life got to this particular chapter. It starts not with you, but with a decision made far above you, in rooms you will never enter, by people you will never meet, who have looked at a situation and concluded that the existing military is insufficient, and that the solution to this insufficiency is, broadly speaking, more humans. The government declares a state of emergency. This is a formal legal designation. It unlocks powers that don't exist in peacetime. And among those powers, in many countries, is the authority to compel civilians into military service. This is not a rumor. This is not a hypothetical. In the United States, the selective service system has required men to register at age 18 since 1980. In South Korea, military service is mandatory. In Norway, Finland, Israel, and a growing number of European countries, conscription is either active or recently reactivated. The infrastructure for this doesn't get built during a crisis. It exists before one, quietly, waiting. The first thing that happens to you personally is a document arrives, formally called an induction notice. It tells you to report to a specific location on a specific date. It carries the legal weight of a court summons. Not showing up is not a consequence-free option. The consequences are not a fine and a strongly worded email. At this point, many people experience what psychologists call denial, and what everyone else calls sitting very still, staring at a piece of paper, and hoping it will change its mind. It will not change its mind. The paper is extremely committed to its position. You report to a military entrance processing station. In the US, it's called MEPS. Most countries have an equivalent. It is a facility designed to process large numbers of civilians efficiently and thoroughly impersonally. It has the atmosphere of a very serious DMV combined with a medical clinic that takes itself extremely seriously. This is where the government determines whether you are physically and mentally capable of serving. The medical examination is comprehensive. Vision, hearing, cardiovascular fitness, blood pressure, joints, mental health history, prior injuries, existing conditions, a list of disqualifying factors so long that reading it is itself slightly stressful. This is the stage where a meaningful percentage of people are found medically unfit for service. The military calls this a 4F classification. Those individuals call it a Tuesday that turned out significantly better than it started. Flat feet, certain vision problems, heart conditions, documented anxiety disorders, dozens of other conditions can result in an exemption. These are evaluated by actual physicians, following actual medical criteria, not by someone guessing based on whether you look athletic.
Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our new and exciting videos.
If you pass the medical examination, and statistically, many people do, you move on to aptitude testing. In the American system, this is called the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. It covers math, science, verbal reasoning, and technical knowledge. It doesn't determine whether you serve. It determines what role you are assigned to. This matters more than most people realize. The difference between scoring high and scoring low is roughly the difference between an intelligence analysis position in a comfortable building and something considerably less comfortable. If you've ever thought standardized tests didn't matter in real life, here is a situation where they matter with unusual directness. Assuming you pass everything, you are formally inducted. This involves taking an oath, and this is the moment the process becomes, legally and practically, very real. The oath of enlistment is not ceremonial in the way most civilian oaths are ceremonial. It is a binding legal commitment. It marks a clear line between who you were before you walked into that room and what you are after you walk out. Many people describe this moment as surprisingly affecting, which makes sense because humans are wired to respond to ritual and formality, and this particular ritual is extremely formal and is happening under circumstances you did not choose, which is a combination that tends to land with considerable weight.
After induction, you are transported to basic training. Basic training is the military's method of taking a large collection of individuals with wildly different backgrounds, fitness levels, habits, and attitudes, and producing from them something that functions as a cohesive unit. If that sounds like it would require considerable effort and some degree of discomfort, that is because it requires considerable effort and some degree of discomfort. Basic training in most militaries runs between 8 and 12 weeks. The philosophy can be summarized roughly as, we are going to make everything harder than it needs to be until the difficulty stops bothering you, and when it stops bothering you, we will know something useful about what you are made of. You will wake up earlier than you have ever voluntarily woken up in your life. You will run distances that seem, in the first week, like a logistical impossibility. You will eat food that is nutritionally adequate and emotionally neutral. You will sleep in a room with strangers, and you will learn, faster than you expected, that the strangers are not actually that strange. Because shared misery is one of the most efficient bonding mechanisms ever discovered by human beings. The physical transformation during basic training is real, and it is faster than most people expect. The human body adapts to physical stress with remarkable efficiency when that stress is applied consistently. People who arrived unable to run a mile are, 8 weeks later, running 3 miles before breakfast, and not particularly troubled by it. This is not magic. This is biology. Your body was built for this, which is both impressive and, given the circumstances, slightly inconvenient. The psychological transformation is equally real and somewhat more complicated. Basic training is deliberately designed to break down individual identity and rebuild it around collective identity. To replace I with we. To make the success of the unit feel more important than personal comfort. Drill instructors are not being difficult for entertainment purposes, though some of them do seem to find it personally fulfilling. They are applying a tested methodology for producing a specific psychological outcome. And that outcome is a person who responds quickly, supports the people next to them instinctively, and maintains function under conditions of stress and fatigue. After basic training comes advanced individual training. This is where you learn your specific military job. And here is something that surprises most civilians. The military contains a vast ecosystem of roles, the majority of which are logistical, technical, or administrative. Not directly combative. For every person in a direct combat role, there are multiple people in communications, logistics, medicine, engineering, intelligence, transportation, maintenance, food service, and legal affairs. Roles that would not look out of place in any large civilian organization, except that everyone is wearing the same thing and standing up considerably straighter. Your aptitude scores, the military's needs, and a set of calculations made by people you will never meet. These determine where you land. There is also, in many countries, a legal mechanism called conscientious objector status. This is the formal recognition that some individuals have sincere moral, ethical, or religious objections to combat service. It can result in assignment to non-combat roles, medical roles, or civilian service programs. This process requires documentation, formal application, and genuine sincerity that predates the arrival of your induction notice by more than about 48 hours. The system does not respond warmly to objections that were discovered very recently and very conveniently. But for those with genuine and long-standing beliefs, it exists. It is legitimate. It has been used successfully throughout history.
So, what is the honest answer to the question of what happens if you are conscripted? It depends. On your country, on your health, on your aptitude, on what role you are assigned, on where you serve. What doesn't depend on any of those variables is the sequence itself. The notice arrives, you report, you are evaluated, you are trained, you serve. That sequence is consistent across countries, across conflicts, across centuries. And the other honest answer, the people who went through this process not by choice, but by circumstance, who were handed a situation they didn't ask for and navigated it anyway, very frequently describe the experience as having changed them in ways they didn't expect, and don't entirely regret, which is perhaps the most human thing about the whole business. We are remarkably adaptable creatures. We rise to circumstances we never imagined. We find community in the most unlikely places. We discover, under genuine difficulty, that we are more capable than we knew. None of which means you should be looking forward to that letter. But if it arrives, now you know what comes next.